still 5 minutes early.
Yeah. Good.
Some silver scorpion.
Yeah, look at that. Okay, it's 9:45 a.m., January 29th, Wednesday. We're going to start this work session in the Lake County Board of County Commissioners. Welcome, everyone. Good to see you. We are starting with budget and long-range plan. All right.
Oops, that's exciting. And you know what's gonna happen. Yeah, so we're gonna talk a little bit about how some of our long-range plans are gonna fit into budgeting, and so we have three different topics within that. We're gonna look at our developing asset management plan, our developing capital improvement plan, as well as our COP, or certificate of participation payments. So the Board of County Commissioners, the previous ones, one of their priorities was deferred maintenance and asset management. We all know that we need the staff and the things to work well enough so that we can serve the people of Lake County, but we can also execute our organizational behaviors efficiently and effectively. So we have about 200 years of deferred maintenance that we really need to think about.
So,
Yeah, sure is. I also think asset management and deferred maintenance have been a continual conversation at the county, and in my time, it's kind of been like stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. And we are in a really positive cycle right now where we're actually getting movement. And I think it's attributed to the team and these folks in this room. We've been meeting once a week. We've been talking about it. And so we actually have something to offer and show each of you today.
Awesome.
So why do we need an asset management plan or an AMP? There are so many different reasons, but basically we need to know what we have, the condition of it, and what its life cycle is, so we know when to replace it. When we talk about assets, we're really just focusing on our capital assets. So we at Lake County Government define that as a purchase of $5,000 or more that has the expected life over 1 year. So when you break assets down, it goes into the groups of property, plant, and equipment. I asked Will today when he said plant if we had a beautiful garden that I didn't know about, but I think that's kind of a legacy term. We've all heard about physical plants at different organizations, so it's really facilities and maintenance. And then specifically at Lake County, we break our assets down even more into vehicles and equipment, information technology, facilities, parks, open space and land, and infrastructure. Why these groups? Because I looked at about 30 different counties and cities' asset management plans, and these seem to be the leading ones. And for me, thinking about this is what really made sense to me. So when we started talking about asset management plan, I think one of the struggles in the past was approaching all of it all at once, and it's too big and it's too overwhelming, so you kind of get stuck and then you kind of get disenchanted with a project that's so big. So it was very important to me that we started small with something attainable that we could work through, have a win, and build on that. So for no reason other than we knew the most, we started with our vehicles and equipment. When I was working on our insurance for the county last summer, because that's when we renew annually, I was going through all the vehicles and I was like, hey, Mabel. And then she started laughing like that. And she's like, nope, this isn't right. And I was like, cool. Ah. So I guess this is a little bit selfish too. When we approach vehicles again this year, I know that we're going to have actually an accurate list, and I feel really, really good about that. Most disappointingly, we don't have a horse. So if we could work on that, I'd appreciate it.
Put it on the list too?
Horse. So we knew we had some of the information for our vehicles and equipment, but these are the steps that we took to build a more comprehensive list. To identify what we have and the conditions of it, we really leaned into departments and we started to crowdsource that information to connect what we had in PubWorks, the software that we use to manage that, and what departments thought we had. This again was all in an effort to identify those long-term financial needs, because through the use, this is a huge fiscal drain and strain if we don't understand how we're navigating this. So each department got a spreadsheet that looked something like this. All of those yellow gaps were information that we do not have in PubWorks. And instead of asking someone to figure that out for 521 vehicles and equipment, we farmed it out to each of the departments. We gave them a deadline and asked them to the best of their knowledge to complete this. So this is the example of the one we sent to the airport. We did add some additional fields like condition. Is it very good, or does it really need some help? We asked about the priority level, like is this a critical tool that you use in daily service to the community, or is it like not so much? And then Fee had the really good idea to also add seasonality. We definitely live in a unique environment and climate here in Lake County, so I think that does impact the use of our vehicles. And the example that I like to say is we are not driving the Zamboni every day, so that should probably extend the life of that piece of equipment. So, once we had all of these spreadsheets completed, our fabulous deputy director of finance, Will, aggregated it into a spreadsheet. And then we were able to manipulate it to really get some more information. So as of this second, Lake County government has 521 vehicles. Road and Bridge wins with 189, because it is a competition. And then it's cascaded down by department. Another really good part of this project was saying, hey, this vehicle is tied to your department. And then the department head would be like, huh, really? That's fascinating. I've never seen that. So not only was it a moment to capture, but also to clean up and put the pieces that we're using in the correct departments.
What happens if a vehicle is used by multiple departments? Does it get counted on each one, or is it split somehow?
No,
Depends on where it's housed.
Where it's housed, where the garage is?
So like the fleet cars are all under Road and Bridge.
Okay. Okay, got it.
How many fleet cars are there, those little white ones?
Yesterday I actually had none,
Really?
for once, yeah. That whole lineup of cars, I only had, community development and planning, and I had Gary's, our
Wow.
project manager.
Every time I look at that, I'm like, why do we have so many cars?
Honest
Now
to
I
God.
know.
The senior center is a big one. They go and they take, seniors over the hill for their doctor's appointments or to Denver or things of that nature. Yesterday, they winded up with 3. Today, they needed 2. So they do get used quite a bit.
Are those leased or are those purchased?
Those are leased through Enterprise.
Enterprise rent-a-car.
Yeah,
Same company.
yeah,
They do fleet management too.
yep. And we get it at a better rate, so. And then once that 5-year term is up, they'll buy the car back and then we get a new one to replace.
Is that enough cars or too much or just right?
Right now, we're pretty good. We're pretty well set.
Mhm.
I mean, if somebody needed another car, I really didn't have one, I was going to let them use, if I had to, the commissioner's old car.
We have an old
Do
car,
you have a car?
Old, it's going way old.
the old Toyota.
The RAV4?
Yep,
It's fancy.
it's,
That car.
It's ours. We can't take it away.
it has the lifetime.
Yeah, just
Well,
got.
It's
No,
way
I'm
less-
sorry.
Way less
No,
fast
what?
lifetime than my cars.
What, has too many miles on it to be insured or?
No, it isn't that, but what we have came up with is our replacement plan going every 5 years on the cars.
So when we're out of office, we'll get a new one. No sneaky.
No,
I guess to boil it down, it's from the outside looking in, it's like, we don't need a new car, save the taxpayer dollars, but from a place of knowledge, you're like, it actually is
and
most cost
believe it or
efficient
not,
to
then you
replace
got the
these.
vehicles under warranty, so things don't cost as much. With a lot of road and bridge equipment, we got a lot of old stuff, and finding parts is almost physically impossible. So that's where we work together with coming up with a replacement plan for the equipment.
Awesome.
And are those cars under your budget or do they come from
The commissioners.
the commissioner's budget?
Mhm.
Okay.
But it used to be where every department had their own vehicle.
Yeah.
And you never got to see or do proper maintenance on them. They never came in for services, so it was a lot of neglect. And now we're wanting to clean that up and take care of it. And protect the assets that we do have.
Thank you, Mabel.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So in addition to the number of vehicles and equipment with departments, I also think it's important to look at our average age of vehicle is 15.7. So for some vehicles, that doesn't matter or equipment, because one of the condition rules we set is for trailers is 40 years, so that's gonna skew it. But that's also not the number that we really want for our passenger and transportation vehicles, like Mabel was talking about. So another fun piece that we were able to make from our aggregate spreadsheet was this allocation of replacement units. So that, don't be alarmed, right? But I think that's very illustrative that maybe now that we have these rules set in place for that replacement cycle, we really need to follow it so we can cascade this 47 across the next 10 years instead of a phenomenal purchase. So we're gonna talk about this a little bit more and give some context, because we're not replacing 47 vehicles, but I think this really demonstrates why we need to have a plan.
Okay.
What's gonna demonstrate it even more is if we put a number value behind the purchase of those vehicles. And we know that costs are gonna increase, and this was the purchase value, we didn't do a linear trend, cause we know that vehicle prices are about 10 grand more than they were last year. But again, this is that piece of budgeting, planning, fiscal responsibility, so we have the tools that we need.
And this takes into account the estimated cost of each vehicle we're replacing, there's not like an average cost you're using, right?
We used the purchase price
Okay.
when it was purchased 17 years ago.
And you will, something that we're.
To the best of our knowledge.
Yeah, which I'll take care of that piece. I know it's in your presentation, but like talking about our depreciation schedule and our assets and our liabilities, that's something that, so the finance team is here, so that's part of like proper accounting of all of the county's assets, ties into our audit process. But over the past couple of years, we did have a huge win with the sheriff's office. Sheriff Speckman agreed to join the fleet program with us. Because if you look at counties across the state and historic practices in Lake County, sheriff would say, I need 10 patrol cars, so they would buy 10 patrol cars. And those get used every day and driven every day, and then in 5 years, I need 10 patrol cars. So now that we're getting on the fleet schedule, those vehicles actually build equity in them. So when that 5-year cycle comes and the sheriff is ready for a new fleet, there's actually equity in those vehicles that makes our cost lower for new fleet vehicles.
Okay, I apologize, that just went right over my head as to how a car can build equity by being used.
Because
Can you
it's so,
elaborate on that?
yeah, so part of the agreement that we have with enterprise, right, with the lease and with the fleet management, you know, we take care of the vehicles, it is an asset, so you know, we have to do, you know, Lance, our mechanic, does those regular check-ins, tune-ups, all of that, so the vehicles are kept in a good condition.
Lance, the singular?
Yes.
Yes, I only have one mechanic, and we need to get another one. But finding a heavy equipment mechanic is very difficult.
He does the EVT too, from yesterday.
He's not an EV, emergency vehicle technician.
Oh, that's right,
Yeah.
okay.
But he does a lot of the fire trucks. He does work on the ambulance from time to time when they need help.
Wow,
So I got one guy doing all this. Now, our Pub Works program is really sweet, and that's why when you took a fleet car or the commissioner's car, I asked for the ending miles and how many gallons. I put it in our system, and it flags it right away for him when it is due for a new service.
okay.
So it makes it where we kind of have a little bit, we got eyes on everything.
Do we have a job posting up for,
Not at
And-
this time, right?
I'm working
hopefully.
through it right now, so it'll
Okay.
be up probably
We
next
had it
week.
posted and we got really no bites.
We do have I can interject this, we do have an apprentice that worked for us earlier that went to a tech school who's graduated in March. They would like to come back to the county, but that's all the information I have about a
okay,
potential technician.
maybe a light at the end of the tunnel there, but right
Yeah,
now,
not soon enough.
okay. I need to shake Lance's hand whenever I see him, you know,
Yeah.
let him know that it's not lost on me that
Yeah,
is
cause he takes
insane
care of
amount
all
of
the
work.
sheriff's cars.
And then you'll notice that the sheriff is now getting Tahoes in, so those, yes, so
Just got
Moving away
another
from the
new one.
Fords,
we're moving away from the Ford.
apologies to any Ford fans in here, but yes.
Yes. But yes, just so
The
you know
fleet
what the
cars
new-
are all kind of
new
staying
look like.
forward because then we can buy in bulk
Yeah,
and makes it easier and cheaper for us.
yeah, there's bigger decisions in my personal preference in vehicles.
So now that we know this, the next steps that the group is working on is making sure that each of those department vehicles and the equipment and all of their details are added into Tyler, so we have the full picture of all of them as well as Pub Works. So Pub Works is the public works side. I was confused in the beginning, I was like, Public Works, what, huh? So I think it's important to note that one's a software, one is a department and a team, and then Tyler is our finance side, cause we really need a connection between the two of those. And there has been a little bit of gap, so how do we get that cleaned up, how do we document it, and how do we maintain that for our great employees? And don't worry, we did it. So this is our draft of our asset management plan. This is going to be a living document that we continue to work on and update as a tool of communication, but also a tool of posterity, so we know what we did with our decision making. So a lot of this is what was in the presentation about what is an asset management plan, what our goals are for it, the questions that we're asking, so a little bit of a philosophical approach so someone can understand it. Talking about what an asset management program is, and that's gonna be the replacement cycle within it. And then documenting. So we captured how we got the vehicle inventory, defining what condition, seasonality, priority level is. We documented that this is how we collected it. We did a documentation of our replacement rules that were developed by Michael Irwin. So we have a 5-year replacement cycle on fleet vehicles because of the lease. Heavy equipment, 20 years, except for specific vehicles. The North Stars have a 7-year because of some important reason.
Actually, the Western Stars.
Western Star.
It depends on how much it's used,
Yeah.
is what it comes down to. I mean, like the water tender, that might be on a 7-year, because you might not get the 20 years out of it, so.
So what Mabel said right there goes back to that 47 number. We have these rules in here to give us an idea, but the people with the expertise and the knowledge are really gonna have to go do a physical inspection to see if it does need to be retired on that 7-year or 40-year. So that could speed it up or slow it down, but that's really gonna influence the 47 number. And Mike started cackling when he saw that, and he's like, it's not gonna be that high, because of those factors that Mabel's talking about.
And
So-
there's other ones that, okay, yeah, we still have some life left in this one, but look at what it's costing us.
Mhm.
Is it worth keeping?
Mhm.
And that's where that comes into play. Yeah, the Western Stars, at least 3 of them, we own them outright, and every year we switch them out for like $5,000, and then we get brand new ones back.
What's a Western Star?
That is our big dump trucks.
Oh, wow, every 3 years.
Yeah, and he's working on it. It sounds like he might be able to get the 4th one put on that agreement too. So that makes it a lot easier for all of us.
A
So
lot
the
easier on
used
land.
ones still hold their value well enough that replacing them only costs an
Actually,
extra
he
5
can
feet?
resell them for more.
What? Oh.
Because we broke them in, we got the bugs taken care of,
Ah,
but it's under their warranties too, so.
There's a shortage of prepackaged trucks, already built dump trucks.
I see. How are we just really efficient
we-
at our own break-in process and getting the bugs out like you're saying?
Pretty much, I mean, there's sometimes they have to come up and really kind of do some tweaking, but we also have one of the semis like that too.
Okay. Cool, alright.
So this first section is our thought that went into capturing this information. This is our section on how when new vehicles or heavy equipment come into our inventory, how we're gonna treat them and take care of them. This is an image of the extract or the detailed equipment listing you get from PubWorks, so just to give you an idea of the granularity we can capture. And then finally, this is how we're gonna maintain everything that we've done, and it's really documenting the process between finance and public works with reconciliation, so that we're making sure that PubWorks and Tyler match, so we can do our everyday jobs to take care of the county, and then also do our finance jobs to take care of the finance and make those long-term decisions.
Cool.
This section is starting to develop our next piece, which, like I said, it's a living document, so we're constantly developing it. Finally, here's an infographic that Will really wanted, but we'll make it bigger and better later.
Pictures always help.
Yeah.
Pictures always help. Okay, so we're gonna go back to the presentation. Let's switch what we're sharing for our friends in the cloud. All right, so what are we gonna do next? We're gonna start working on our next asset category, and then we need to start working on the development of a capital improvement plan. Candace is gonna talk about that in a minute. So when we did this presentation for the Board of County Commissioners in November, they were very adamant to start on facilities next, and that was the direction we were given. And then Jeff looked at us and kind of laughed. He's like, "Can you have it done by December?" And we're like, I was like, "We can try." So we spent our next couple meetings talking about what facilities looks like. So we have 44 facilities, which includes little toilets. We have 32 parks. Yeah, that's pretty overwhelming, right? Cause it took us, 3-4 months just to get through these vehicles? And we're not even done, but vehicles are a little bit easier to capture what needs to be done.
And those facilities are in Pub Works.
So we have, with Mike, Mabel, and Will working together, we've made sure that our inventory of land and facilities is correct. But it kind of puts us in a moment of we need some guidance and direction on what to do next. I also wanna mention that when we started this project, we didn't have Stuart. Turns out Stuart knows a lot of stuff and things that we can use. But me, Mike, and myself, as well as the rest of the team, drafted this memo about our asset management plan and kind of where we are at. And I think that the big piece is the current staff we had at that moment, we have the practical, historical, and anecdotal knowledge of our facilities. But we are not mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineers with HVAC expertise and accessibility and sustainability. So we don't know that. It looks like we can pull back from this statement a little bit and really explore Stuart's expertise, his knowledge, to see how we can lean into that. But I also think that we may be in a moment that we do have to rely on some external consultation to figure it out.
Yes.
When I was doing some gentle internet research, it looks like a comprehensive assessment of a building is about $100,000. So also looking at a long-range plan, we are not doing all 44 buildings tomorrow. So I think we also really need to lean into what the folks at Public Works know and their organizational and institutional knowledge. What are our critical facilities to serve the people of Lake County? What are our critical facilities to continue doing the work that we do day to day? So we are seeking direction from the BOCC on the next phase of this project. This isn't something you have to answer right now, and I definitely wanna see what Stuart has to know. We meet next week, but it's something to mull over.
So these $100,000 assessments are structural integrity, the roof, all that stuff.
Whole kit and caboodle.
I mean, a lot of that stuff's gonna be really obvious.
You're a contractor, so you know there are standards that the county has never adopted that we're supposed to be following, that gives a lifetime for a stairwell or a furnace or roof, whatever that is. And we can adopt those and incorporate those, and that's what I was thinking, that's what I've done in the past.
Well, yeah, I'd like to get a tour of all the buildings and see what, maybe make a priority list. Like what's the first thing we need to address and what can we put off for another 200 years on some of these other buildings?
And it's the buildings we don't even need anymore, you know, like I know we're short on space in so many different ways, but there's probably also worth taking a look at some of those
So we're,
facilities.
And the land.
And the land.
yep,
And there's way to possibly.
And I know, Michael was talking about his dream of building a new facility down on 24.
And then, where we are right now, with the main shop and everything else, would actually be able to go to affordable housing.
Yeah.
so I think we were successful in making progress in the vehicles and equipment, because we broke it down into pieces, took care of that and moved on. And so if facilities is the next group of assets that we're tackling, I think that we really need to break it down into pieces of what we wanna know, cause even right here, we've talked about 3 or 4 different projects within that. And I think that's what's gonna keep us progressing and keep moving. But it's a huge task. And I think it's always important to remember, like, we all have our day-to-day jobs, and then we have these special projects on top of it, which does slow progress down, but it doesn't mean that it's insurmountable. And additionally, we really need to lean in to what the folks know that have been here for a really long time. They have a huge amount of organizational knowledge that may disappear someday, but not Maple, cause Maple Sue is gonna work here forever.
Are we leasing any facilities?
Yes, we are, like the health services
Yes.
building.
County Attorney's Office.
I just received all the original plans for that today, so.
So the ones with the Lisa are probation, so by the library.
Yep.
Down Dr. Lisa's where human services and public health is. What was the third you just said?
County attorneys.
County attorney's office.
Public Works is not leasing any structures?
No.
We own all that.
But just like with the addition of Stuart and his knowledge, I was kind of holding off on information technology, cause I was like, I don't have the time to really do this well.
Yeah.
But we've added Justin to our staff, I'm really excited about what he knows and what he's thinking. So that's also another category in our asset program that we're gonna really dig into next. So individually, your laptop doesn't really qualify for the asset management plan, but when we do it as an omnibus set, heck yeah, it really does.
Mhm.
So we really need to know what we have, what its life cycle is, cause or else it's just gonna look like the vehicle one, right? And we're gonna have the spike of 47, when we can really just plan.
So that one can get plugged away at information technology. But facilities, when are we gonna have a time to really give some direction on facilities?
So what I would like to suggest, I think Mike will be back next week, I think it's important
He's
to have,
back tomorrow,
he just doesn't like to come when I schedule these.
and he's at a conference.
Yeah, so I think the right step would be Stuart, Mike, and the rest of the asset management team having a conversation, seeing kind of what the feeling is in phases, and then bring it back for a work session.
Great.
Great.
Yeah, that's, I
Ready?
just wrote down work session, please.
You wanna set the date now?
Well, not for the work session, I think we should kind of make a little bit of a plan, I think we can guess that the work session will be like February, March-ish to give us enough time to build something solid. But the asset management team does meet once a week on Wednesdays, and I believe you've been added to those invites, but I'll double check. Cool. So just in closing, I'm really excited about the progress that we made, it's a tribute to the team working on it. And we still have some really good stuff to do and to figure out, and I hope it's setting the model for these other assets. We're gonna keep moving and grooving.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Sweet.
And to,
Sorry, go ahead, Tim.
I was just gonna, reinforcing what Liz said, or maybe reinforcing the obvious, right, like, so the county never had an asset management plan. So we're working on creating that, with what we have in-house, and then there probably will be an ask, to get some outside help, for some of those specific, areas. But also part of this ties into the long-range planning for the county, right? Of working with the board on your priorities for facilities, for IT, for all of those things, but also understanding that budgetary impact and the long-range plans. So instead of, there just being Band-Aids, consistently throughout this, I think as you spend more and more time in this facility, you see things where you're like, huh, why wasn't that done? So now we're actually at a place where we can work with you guys on the plan and actually achieve those things.
And taking a step back, the asset management plan is gonna be like guidance, if we're looking at something where it's like, we don't need to spend taxpayer dollars on this yet, we'll be able to be like, okay, let's
Yes,
punt that down the line for later.
but at least you have it on a list, and some kind of cost estimate or resource estimate, capacity, staff time, all of that. So if we're, looking at the bridge replacements and the culvert replacements, like we secured that funding through the state for those. Those are kind of like the necessary improvements that need to be made for a whole host of reasons. But there are other things, right, like perhaps like the roads in Four Seasons, like we can wait a while. Sorry for anyone who lives in Four Seasons.
Those roads are pretty nice, I think they'd
Yeah.
agree with you, right?
Yeah. But yeah, yes, it is that guidance and guiding document, and then for staff having that opportunity to come back to the board of like, hey, so this one's really critical,
Yes,
and this one isn't.
yes.
Or the board can be like, I wanna flip those,
Yeah.
alright,
So in today's work session packet, the memo,
Mhm.
this is our draft that's continually being developed. Mike sent me the pavement management reports. We had a pavement management plan done in 2019, I think. And so it's time for an update, but all of this is in here. And then additionally, I put examples and additional documents to support the development of an asset management plan for vehicles. I really like Tillamook County, just so you know. I think that they've done a fantastic little one pager to, just kidding, it's more than a one pager, but it's a nice graphic and descriptor and explaining of the plan that's meant for a general audience. So these are all things that we could build up to as well as we know more.
Okay, that's under examples.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
and do you wanna just open the pavement one, just so you guys can see
Yeah.
the deep dive that went into that.
Go away. Let's see.
Who doesn't want it?
It refuses.
We can do the Excel sheet.
And so infrastructure is the category and it's pavement, bridges, roads, culverts, all of that. Storm, water drainage systems.
And when we come back for this, we can walk more through it, but so go to the network analysis, I think is the one. Alright, and scroll down.
Very bad.
I can contribute one thing to
Yes.
this, and that is,
You can really enable the content.
the reason why Michael
Thank you.
started doing this is he receives funding by defining which roads need help and which ones don't, and how much we accomplished the year before. His funding's tied to that, and so that's why he's documenting this. It's an important piece for paying for the road work.
Freeze the paint.
Unfreeze the panes.
Go to view. And then towards the right hand side where it says freeze panes.
So close there.
Ah, Will. It's amazing. See, teamwork, right?
So here you see the list, and like the GIS, like everything, so these are all of the county's roads. And so what this, or what. Paved roads, yeah, and then so it breaks it out by local roads, minor collectors, primary artery roads, and then it grades the asphalt. And if you go over to the right, Liz, you start to see you can see the conditional rating, right? So some things are good, some things are bad, so this is what Michael and his team use to guide their priorities of repaving. So then you've seen over the past couple of years, right, County Road 99, 4 and 5 and 10. Were the big ones. And then we update, this sheet from there, but you have a guiding document, and yes, of course, if you drive our roads as well, you can double check this list and see that. But this also, allows Michael to build out and plan for the next paving season.
I gotta say, as somebody who has to decide on the budget, it has made me so uncomfortable that there has been no asset management plan. And I know there have been little pieces housed within different departments, but as an overall budgeting tool, this has like been what has been most scary to me.
Yes.
Like, because we are only responding to things. And I feel like it's best practice in every other industry to have an asset management plan. I just wanna say I'm so grateful that this project is finally having leadership at a bigger level so that everybody can collaborate on what they know. And I love the asset management plans. It's like I feel like I have so much more control when making plans for the future, knowing what is definitely coming down the pipe versus what we want to come down the pipe. So just wanna say thank you to all of you who have contributed to this, and I cannot wait for more.
I couldn't agree with you more, Elsa. One of the reasons why Michael Irwin took all of you out to the asset, to the asphalt plant is because if he had the board support, he could accomplish a lot more during the road construction season if we had that operation. I just wanted to interject that.
And the nice part is when you go to other counties and then they find out that you can make your own road base, they cannot believe that.
Yeah,
And that is such a huge asset, and that would cost us a fortune if we had to buy it.
well, you
Yeah.
mentioned that we could even be working with other counties to help supply them with
And actually,
materials.
during 2013, the flooding that occurred down in Denver, we did offer. They did take a couple of our culverts, but we also suffered from that as well. And we had a lot of roads that were completely washed out, but we were able to put our roads back the next day. So that was a huge bonus for us.
Nice.
Instead of paying the ECA.
And we didn't have to travel someplace else to get it. We're right here in the county.
Yeah, that's what
What
dollars
do
and
you
cents.
mean by board support? Exactly what would you need from
We
us?
haven't run our plant out here by the ACA's gravel pit for maybe a couple decades.
Yeah.
Michael was the last one to run it when he was an operator, but we saved a tremendous amount of money. More importantly, we could pave that many more roads if we ran that.
Recycle all that material and.
Dollar for dollar, it's cheaper.
Well, you got my support, how do we formalize or take a vote
Well,
on it?
We have,
Well,
we
we,
have
so we,
support on
We just gotta get the plant up and going.
yeah, so we did invest in the crusher and the hot plant last year. So we should be good on that front for it to work, which was the first hurdle, but we did that, but I think there will be considerations, right, when it comes to paving season. There are local businesses here who do the same thing. So wanting to be cognizant of that, not wanting to impact their
Yes.
businesses, by being a competitor.
Well, they wouldn't compete with us on county roads, would they?
If we, so if in the past, we have bought materials from them.
Oh, I see.
And so that'll be part of the consideration, right? So like partnering with CDOT or even partnering with the city, there can be some efficiencies driven, but we need to be cognizant of those businesses in our community that provide those services as well.
ACA? You're worried about hurting their feelings? I don't
No,
understand that part.
it's just,
Compete with-
it just
We're not
being-
gonna sell it, we're not gonna retail it, we're gonna start selling it.
Right, and I think, so perfect, so that's part of the guidance from the board, right? So we don't wanna, selling that, but if we have excess material, if we do choose to sell it, then we should sell it at the same rate that ACA sells it. Not to undercut them.
Yeah.
But just for the board, for you guys to think through that as well as we get into paving season and we start crushing this and we get the hot plant up and going and all of that. Just knowing that there are businesses in this town, in this community that we've used in the past.
Is ACA the gravel pit across
Yeah.
the street from the hot plant?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I thought we were gonna be using their materials
Yes, we
primarily
wanted to,
until.
we'll be using their material
Okay.
now, because otherwise we would have to get a crusher in there
Yeah,
and then crush and make our own material.
and it
So
made the
working
cost
with-
straight off.
Working with them, we wanna do it.
Michael said he had an issue with HR not wanting to hire summer employees or temporary employees, is that your understanding, Abel?
I know that we were told that we're pretty well done. We are gonna get an operator position posted because we did lose one of our operators, which is painful, but we wish them the best, but.
The season's so short.
Except, and, yeah, seasonal workers, we used to do that in the past where we could bring them in and just work a period of time. And, we don't have that, it doesn't look like in our listing anymore, so. But that would be helpful, but the problem to remember too is for us, trying to find somebody with a CDL that is drug-free. That is getting to be a very difficult thing.
Cause the ganja thing,
Yeah,
Because of the ganja thing.
that's why
I mean, ever since they made it legal, everybody in their head says, well, it's legal, I can do it.
Yeah,
Well, we still fall under federal, and you can't do that.
Yeah.
Be a good job for some high school kids, not driving the trucks, but
If they could
working
work
the
it.
shovels and
Mhm.
rakes.
But we've had people do that in the past and then we find them sleeping on the road.
Yeah. Well, it's hard.
So you gotta find people that are motivated to.
yeah.
So, I'm going to pass this to Candace, cause she's gonna talk about a capital improvement plan. So we can meet some of these objectives with our facilities, infrastructure, and everything else.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you
welcome.
guys for
Thank you, Liz.
presenting that, and I am excited about finding ways we can move forward and how we can move chess pieces around within the county to get road and bridge the help it needs to make things happen, cause it sounds like there's a couple areas where we're pretty short.
Even if we,
And there's assets to leverage.
Yeah.
I think we're saying that, but even 100 vehicles per mechanic is not 521.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I spent some wrenches on nothing even nearly as technical as, emergency vehicles and stuff like that, and it's like, that just immediately jumped out at me like, whoa, wait, one?
You're making this only singular.
Oh, yeah, I need to meet this guy, he's, not all heroes wear capes.
Alright, so let's talk about capital improvement planning. Logically, we don't have one because we don't even know for sure all of the assets we have and the condition they're in. So let's talk about what is one and what are goals for moving towards creating one. So a capital improvement plan is simply a strategic plan that is gonna outline the long-term investments and the projects required to improve and maintain the infrastructure of the county. This plan serves as a roadmap to identify, prioritize, and fund essential projects that enhance the quality of life for residents, employees, and other stakeholders. Alright, so we are at step one, assessing current assets and needs. So we really are kind of in the first step of a capital improvement plan. So we sort of need to get through our assets management, nailing them down, understanding what we have, getting depreciation schedules set up to account for those things, so that we can have plans to move things forward. So step two is to establish goals and priorities. Then thirdly, to develop a budget and a funding plan. And then step four would be implementing the program. And then we would want to monitor, evaluate progress, and kind of reassess our priorities every so many years. So what's really important about capital improvement planning is that you really need stakeholder engagement. We need to know what the BOCC has as a priority, we need to know what citizens prioritize, what do employees who have facilities they have to work in. We have to have input from more than just us in this room. So we really wanna make sure that we involve stakeholders in any sort of capital improvement program. for several different reasons. Biggest reasons are to have better decision-making processes, when people who are impacted by the decisions of the capital improvement plan are included, it means we have a lot more buy-in. We have perspectives that maybe everyone in this room doesn't even have the knowledge or expertise for. Fosters collaboration and builds relationships. I have noticed in my time here that there's a lot of discord amongst community members in terms of understanding the why and what we're doing in terms of managing our assets and planning for it. So it'd be great to have other people participate and understand the why and where we're at and what we need. It identifies issues and concerns early on, like what things can we wait on for 200 more years or not. It enhances transparency and accountability, which I've heard over and over and over again are really important to our group. So a capital improvement plan, those can be huge documents. They require input from professionals who might need to come in and assess the quality of our buildings. I've looked at a couple of different capital improvement plans. Different communities around our state have them, and they are huge documents that require a lot of input. So I would like to suggest that we put together a session to sit down and walk through, okay, what is capital improvement plan? Look at a few examples, identify who's needed to create one. A capital improvement plan is not just for 5 years down the road, it's like reassessed every 5 years, and it's for 5, 10, 15 years down the road. What does the community want to see in terms of changing from maybe relying so heavily on mining to what are the priorities of the community as a whole and the direction we see the town continuing to develop in, like maybe mining isn't our main thing anymore, what is? And I know that, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the economic development group has started kind of a strategic plan and strategic planning development for the town. That is a great time to start to think about, okay, what have we identified as goals for our community and how does that tie to what we wanna see in terms of planning for buildings or planning for activities that will continue to sustain the community? Are we a tourism town? Are we a mining town? Are we both? Do we see things going in a different direction? What direction is that? So we can determine what we wanna do to plan capital assets going forward. So I think it is a huge undertaking and we are just in the first step of understanding what are our assets, and what are our long-term goals. Kind of helps answer that question of, do we hold on to this building or do we sell it, or when would we make that go or no-go decision? Well, we have to know what our long-term plan as a community is collectively and have input from more than just the few of us in this room. So I think it's a bigger community-wide discussion. And I think maybe a strategic planning session to understand where we're gonna get with our assets management first. And then to be thinking about, okay, we also need to be planning long-term and not just in the time that you guys are here and we're here. That's all I have for that, because I think we need a little more input and thought to continue to move towards planning that.
Okay, so next work session on the capital improvement plan is basically just gonna be coming up with our how we're even gonna approach developing it, what
Yeah.
data we need, what info. My one, aside from let's just go ahead and start thinking about what times are gonna work for that work session is just hoping that we can lean on as much existing data, in-house expertise and current resources that we already have instead of hiring out of area help to tell us stuff that we might already know if we could just dig in the right places. Cause I keep hearing that we need studies, we need someone to tell us these things, and my concerns are that there's gonna be times where we need that, you know, it's the hard truth, but hopefully we can take a harder look at what we can figure out on our own without hiring out of area people to tell us stuff that maybe we can figure out in-house. And I don't know if that'll apply here, but I just wanna plant that seed and start trying to think about that before we always go to outside.
I would
consultants.
agree. I would also caution that if we do get to a point where clearly we have gotten to the depth of knowledge and the max of internal expertise, running forward with things that have not been researched well seems to have been
understand.
done in the past a lot.
Yep.
And mind you, I'm brand new here. But there is a point where you have to say, okay, have we maxed out every resource we have? Sometimes cheap is very expensive in the long-term cost. And you see that in terms of sadly a pool that sits there unused when honestly we have to prioritize, is that the top priority? No, but continuing to take the cheapest option sometimes is the most expensive option in the long run. So I will caution you, sure, we don't wanna do tons of outside studies, but when they're warranted and they will save you money in 50 years, that is the better decision. And so as you guys come up against those decisions, it's, yours that you're gonna have to make, is when are those appropriate and when are those the things that save us money and buildings falling apart around us 50 years down the road.
Yeah.
So really do take those things into account.
Absolutely, yeah, we have to, it's.
And also the state has already adopted in, the national standards just a few years ago, I don't have the exact date, for all the policies and guidelines for every building, and if we adopt that, we follow that within the county, that answers a lot of our questions. There's a lot of help through the state, a lot of information there that'll help us. Where I've worked in the past, we've used those guidelines, so, we don't have that program here, but we certainly would do it in it. We don't have to have an outside consultant because the state provides that for us.
Yeah.
Does that obligate us to fix, is that an unfunded mandate situation? When we adopt the guidelines and they say, hey man, you guys need a ADA ramp or.
That's a really good question, Matt. Yes and no. I think we need a work session to talk about that, actually.
Okay.
CMP? I know, have you guys met everyone in the room? Just making sure.
Just about, yeah.
Okay, alright, just wanna make sure. We always do introductions. Alright, so Lauren and I, and then Chris is on as well, we will walk you through the certificate of participation, where we landed, how we landed there. Long history, I think you all know it, have you gone on a tour of the jail with Sheriff Speckman?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay, you would too?
No,
Not yet, okay, we'll find that time. Have you seen it? It's not in mint condition. The former sheriff did close it in 2019. We did do some renovations in 22 using some ARPA funds to retrofit and create 2 holding cells in there. But it's still not like adequate for the sheriff to use on a day-to-day basis. In 22 and 23, explored building a new facility down on what we call the Monroe site. So the one at the end of town, south of town there on the left, across from Dan and Tang's, the ATV place. It's that vacant space there. That was cost prohibitive. So we're like, okay, we know we have to do something, what are we gonna do? So you see these options on the bottom, also cost prohibitive. Option A1 was the new build and leaving this facility as is. The second option was building new down at Monroe and fully renovating this building for county services. Option B, be a new county building down on Monroe, so you know, all of the county elected offices, office space, that kind of stuff, and renovate this facility for courts and detentions. Option C, new county building, new detention, and renovate this county building for courts and the sheriff. Option D, new justice center, plus renovating this building. And option E, new sheriff's office and detention site at the Monroe site, and reno this building for county courts and county operations. As you can see, all of those are cost prohibitive. So that led us down our journey with the previous board on the certificate of participation and some legislative changes. Do you wanna talk about?
Yeah, so table 27, article 65-101 basically says any county that has 2,000 or more people is required to maintain a jail in their county. Many counties throughout the state use a regional jail approach like we do, where one county will send all of their defendants to another county and pay a per diem rate. So we used to pay $45 a day per inmate. We are now at 65. That, I think last year we spent about $165,000 to house inmates. That will go up to a little over $200,000 with the per diem rate increase. I'll just say $65 a day to house somebody is extremely inexpensive compared to some of the rates that you see in other parts of our state, which are well over 100 to 150 in like metro areas. So I think it's actually pretty inexpensive when you're looking at how many people you would have to employ and to maintain a jail facility. It's well over that amount. But anyways, we are running legislation, and actually myself and Sheriff Speckman went down yesterday to testify. It passed unanimously out of the House Judiciary Committee, which basically says if you're a county that has an IGA or other contract with another county for them to serve as your jail, this statute no longer applies to you. So you are no longer required to maintain a jail in your county if you use another one. So that should pass this year, more or less untying our statutory requirement to maintain jail.
Whoa, so that,
Awesome.
I mean, come on, that solves that.
Yes.
That's insane.
As long as we're very nice to our neighboring counties. We're very lucky to have a very great sheriff who has good relationships, but what's working with Chafee is working really well for us.
Do you think it's gonna pass?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Very lucky to have a very brilliant deputy county manager and legislative mind.
very grateful for
To
her.
drive this forward.
Does Chaffey County have a brand new or decent facility? They do.
And
20 years, 25, 30 years of this, and it's gonna be not fixed. I get that we need our own facilities of some sort, but this is just wild to learn.
But we need holding facilities, and
Yeah.
it's just showers fixed and the plumbing and we need, so that takes us to the COP.
so, and that's where, commissioners, the definitions are very important.
Mhm.
So we are talking about, for the renovations of the current jail facility, are renovations for holding cells. So that allows us to hold someone for up to 72 hours. We can hold someone for up to 72 hours
Mhm.
without a shower. I mean, there's still a toilet in the holding cell, but like after 72 hours, the detainee is entitled to a shower.
Mhm.
Does that include the full scope of all detainees regardless of gender or anything like that? Because I know in the past, we've had issues where we've had to drive, like say, you know, a female gets arrested,
Mhm.
she has to get transferred to Summit County or somewhere like in the middle of the night, cause we
Yep.
can't, we're gonna be able to take care of that issue, right?
Yes, and the other, so with the holding cells, right, those are designed for individuals, but you can put more than one person in there. But yes, when you bring someone the other gender in, there is that consideration of them having their own space. More importantly is when juveniles come in.
Mhm.
So, we'll use the example of the brawl that happened on Harrison this past summer. Sheriff's office responded, detained a whole host of people. detained a couple people who were under 18. That meant that everyone in those holding cells back there needed to be released. Because children, juveniles, cannot be held in the same place as adults. So that's another key consideration. There's a whole host of rules that the sheriff and his team have to follow when it comes to detaining someone. So if there's not enough space or a private area for a juvenile to be in there, not see the adults, not be around the adults, then the sheriff has to make harder decisions. Where else was going with this? Also, so we do have a wonderful sheriff who has developed a great relationship and repaired relationships with surrounding county sheriffs. However, as you are all aware, sheriffs are elected officials in Colorado. So, I'll give you an anecdotal example of how sometimes these things could go south and why we need our own holding cells. So, the last, I think it was the last election, the Garfield County Sheriff and the Pitkin County Sheriff were friends. The Pitkin County Sheriff lost his re-election bid. And immediately, after the swearing in, Garfield County Sheriff didn't like the new Pitkin County Sheriff and stopped taking all Pitkin County inmates. So now Pitkin has to drive everyone to Eagle, because Pitkin is also renovating their courthouse and their jails as well. So, just consider that as Lauren works on the legislative solution. There's always politics and personalities involved. If you look on the map, I know you can't see it, but what county? Rio Blanco County, which is above Garfield County, and then Moffett County. Rio Blanco County does not have a jail, they do not have holding cells. Rio Blanco County is a very large county, land-wise, right? So it's not like arresting someone in Twin Lakes and either taking them to Salida or taking them here. So when they make an arrest in Rio Blanco County, they have to drive to Moffett County's jail to bring people there. So that takes a deputy off of the road for however long that is. Rest of their shift, overtime, whatever, for all of that. So there are some other, so just think of that as well of like why we are moving forward on creating the holding cells here. So it gives the sheriff some of that flexibility, and you know, future personalities and
And
elected offices, you never know.
Yeah.
And the transportation.
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
less wear and tear on vehicles.
Yeah, there's a 48-hour bond hearing requirement in Colorado, so every human being that is arrested is statutorily required to go in front of a judge to see if they can get bond or not within 48 hours, so it greatly reduces the amount of transports we have to do. If the majority of individuals do get bond, they get out, go into the community, and really we're only sending people to Chaffey County who have longer term stays or are too dangerous to be in our community. So it cuts down on the amount of people we have to pay for, and it also allows people to stay in the community instead of being shipped over to Chaffey.
Does that cost benefit exist somewhere? Does the cost analysis exist?
Yeah,
For
I
us.
mean, we can show you the amount that we were spending for FTE to run a jail versus how much we're spending per diem.
For transport?
1.5 FTE is.
I just think as we're telling the story of this, from the county's perspective, if this legislation is gonna pass.
Yeah.
And we're continuing with the COP, all of this is like, we get the opportunity to tell the story, and having the data behind the money of how the decisions we're making are or are not in the benefit of taxpayer dollar efficiency, I think that's really crucial.
Sure.
So if we could get it, that'd be awesome. Thank you, Lauren.
Good point.
So in the fall of 2024, you know, we worked with the school district, so the school district's initial plan of divesting from LCIS or the intermediate school. So we explored that option with the prior board. So what does it look like? Lake County government left this building and moved into that building. Option one is where we landed, but if looking through the options of what that we explored this past fall, so renovating courts, law enforcement and detentions, add an addition to the existing footprint, and no LCIS. So where those, you can see where those numbers, came in. Renovating LCIS for county offices, looking at 25,000 square feet for that. Renovating the courts here, existing detentions, and then the purchase price of LCIS. Option 4, aquatic center replacement and abatement, and then that locker room remodel. Combined with, could be combined with option 3 or just option 4. Option 5, be building a new detention facility at LCIS. Renovating a wing of it for the courts, renovating, and then, renovating our, office space here, cause renovating office space is cheap. Renovating a holding cell or a court, and their security needs, is not cheap. So as we work through that with the school district and with the prior board, and then trying to find a solution that the county can afford and long-term afford is where we landed with option 1. So renovating the jail, and then, well, you'll actually see all that, where we landed, is renovating the law enforcement area and detentions. And what that cost is, we're working with FCI Constructors and DPM, who's our owner's rep for this. And then you can see the estimated cost, the escalated costs, and then soft costs. So on the right, you can see, well, the average cost, but pay attention to the one that, the estimated highest cost of that was about 12.8. Working with the 5th Judicial District and the DA over the years, so we understand the needs and then the wants of the DA and the 5th Judicial District. So we were able to work through the cost for, some renovations for security and upgrades upstairs, like as you've heard, like heat, a whole host of things up there, which Stuart fixed the heat, so it's 67 degrees up there all across.
76.
76, okay, so
Wow.
Too
Yeah.
Crack the windows.
but yeah. But then also like kind of like there are other things, as we work through this of like, it is clear that the windows in this building need to be replaced. So building that into this cost. The elevator needs some work. There are some other, things to make the restrooms more ADA compliant, because on this strip of Harrison, we're one of the few buildings and restrooms that are ADA compliant on this floor. So and then, thinking of other things, because there's a leak that goes down from the jail into the community planning and development office from the jail, so like fixing those kind of things. Elevator needs some upgrades, so we added in some of those like general deferred maintenance into this as well. So it's clear as mud. Do you wanna add anything, Lauren? There, okay.
Where are people gonna go as their offices are being renovated, is there a plan?
That is an excellent question. No plan yet. So when we renovated the retrofitted and created those holding cells, the 2 holding cells we have now, that work was done at night. However, it was very loud, so they had to cut, so all those, the bars and everything you see in there also have asbestos in them. So there's mitigation work that had to happen, like the cutting of those, all of that, anyway. It was very loud, so it was done at night, so when the court was doing their business, didn't disturb everything else in the county doing its business. However, as you know, dispatch is back there. So we do need that, as we phase out this project, and we'll, continue to bring these updates to you guys, and then as we firm up those plans so you can see them and provide guidance on them with the architect and the owner's rep and the contractors. believe the phasing should start with the detentions facility and have those areas taken care of first. But yeah, what does that mean for dispatch, in particular, so that they can function and provide their necessary service, in a safe and decent place.
So there's no cost associated with moving folks around that's been built into this plan.
No, because the assumption made was that they're like, so some of those like IT costs and things for that, the E911 board was aware of that. So I think they have some funding, like if we're gonna pull from
Okay.
this port and plug into this port.
Yeah,
So there's some of that planning.
yeah,
But in terms of like a space needs assessment, it was kind of like, alright, we will find the space
yeah,
and we'll make it happen. So there are options, there's mobile command, there's a mobile dispatch unit, maybe it's down in the parking lot, and that's where dispatch is run from for a couple months. There are capabilities up at the cache where the Office of Emergency Management is. But we do share that place with search and rescue, maybe we kick them out for a couple months and say, sorry, you gotta find somewhere else to meet. Dispatch is running from here.
Where's that, cash?
13, East 13,
10th.
East 10th, sorry,
East Kent?
at the very top,
At the
all the
top.
way up. So we do have space options, for that. Now, when it comes to, as we work, think through like windows and things like that, I think for like Commissioner Rowe, right, there's an ability for you all to work remote, or perhaps, having office hours at the library, City on the Hill, at CMC, so you're still accessible to the public. And for me, maybe it's rooming up with Lauren, being over in the annex in one of the cubes, things like that. For the assessor's office, if we do one side at a time, Mark and his team can move into the one side, maybe we move back to the other side.
You say you looked at this building back here with the gym in it?
Yes.
And it doesn't work for
It-
temporary?
It does not, so we took a couple tours of that, with the owners, so, also built in 1955. That used to be the old, Union building, for the mine workers. That building has no ADA accessibility, so literally you walk in and it's split level, you have to go downstairs or upstairs. So we'd either have to put a lift in, so it is accessible. There are some private businesses that are in there as well, so there was some office space. So sure, my office could be over there, but it's not accessible for the public to come to me if they want to. We also explored like what it would look like to, purchase that building and renovate, which is also cost prohibitive. Cause that building has a lot of deferred maintenance. Don't know if you knew, there used to be a bar in there, the bar's still in there,
It's still there, huh?
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Rocky Bottoms is
yeah.
bodies.
Put your office there. But so yeah, that building and even I think that building, when we looked at the boiler, that boiler is
Real old,
very old as well, so
very
there's
questioned.
a whole host of issues there as well. So we even looked at
Cause
so
the
that,
bathrooms weren't even ADA.
yeah, so in the bathrooms, also, we thought about, ran the thought exercise of where the movie theater used to be in there, right, it's all brick, and it's like, well, we built a jail in here surely. But again, it's like building something within that box turned to be cost prohibitive. So we did explore that option.
So many options and no options.
Yeah, yeah, and so where we landed, everything kept bringing back to this building, right? This is the building that we have. And we know that we can work on, right? It's not building new. It is a renovation of 70-year-old building. There might be things that are unforeseen, but we did have that master plan done last year by GSG Group, which I think you guys have. You'll see a master plan of this facility that has like a whole host of its deficiencies. So the architects and the contractor and the owner's rep have that, and that's what they've been kind of guiding on thus far. And on the bottom is where you see, so and we'll get into like the COP process and all of that, but the amount of the certificate of participation is $8 million. Prior board did contribute $5 million from the general fund. We do have congressionally directed spending, $3.5 million. We did receive an underfunded courthouse grant from the state, in the amount of $500,000, bringing the total project budget to $17 million. So 2 of those are variable. I'm waiting to hear back from the USDA on the congressionally directed spending. However, that was voted on and appropriated by Congress for this project. So I do not know that the President's Office of Management and OMB budget executive order would impact that. We're waiting for guidance on that, but there is that $3.5 million there. And then of course, the general fund contribution is now subject to this board. So the previous board, did contribute or, wanted to contribute that much money to this project.
That left us with about 3.5 left in the general fund.
No, I think you have seven, I think it's around 7 or almost 8, because there was almost 13 in there, so take away the 5. And then the purchase for the school district, so I think there's about 7 left, but I will confirm that.
Okay.
They did not bring it down to that to the reserve limit, it did not bring it down to
Okay.
that. It left you guys a healthy balance.
And it looks pretty rosy on there, but I imagine when we're looking at the costs of supplemental space, relocating, moving everyone, that last 5 million in wiggle room on there is still in question, how much of that are we gonna need to haul in temporary office trailers or do whatever we gotta do to keep the county functioning, county day-to-day functions happening?
Yep.
I mean, I hope it won't cost that much, but
And that is part of the discussions with the sheriff, with the contractors, the architect and all of that is like, this is the budget, period. So, ideally, the sheriff would like 4 holding cells, in addition to the 2, so 6 total. If we can afford 2, we afford 2. If prioritizing moving dispatch so that essential service can happen, right? That is would be part of this budget, but that has been the clear direction given to the renovation team of like, that is the budget. There's no going over the budget. And that, which will mean that there will be hard decisions that will have to be made. So when we're thinking about renovations for upstairs, we've worked closely with the 5th Judicial District on that, especially for security needs. For the courts, so what does it look like for that? If the bench is flipped, so instead of where it sits now, if it sits over here, and then more security down that hallway. So there are solutions there that hopefully are not like terribly cost prohibitive. The reason we went for the $500,000 grant for the underfunded courthouse grant is to help with that planning in the initial phases of construction up there. We can go back to that well, because the chief judge, Judge Dunkelman, has advocated heavily, and this is one of the top 3 priority courthouses in the state for that kind of funding. In the past, we have received the full grant amount that's set aside for that amount, which is like $3.5 million, we just didn't have everything together to be able to do that. So there's an opportunity for upstairs for sure, to receive additional funding.
Nice. When do we get to go back for that?
Those are in August.
Okay.
In light of the current budget state of affairs in the, on the state level, hard to imagine we can count on something like that.
That is true, that has crossed our mind, but the judicial branch is very good at advocating for themselves.
Yes, they are.
So I think it would be quite a fight,
yeah.
but you're right. that is variable.
You know, there's also the mindset too, that we gotta remember that when things get tricky like this, I think a lot of people are automatically gonna withdraw and pull back from things they're thinking of just because like, well, the state's in such horrible shape, we're not gonna ask for this stuff. So it's almost like a survival of the fittest, like the better of a job that we can do in maybe a smaller pool of people trying to, you know, put their hand in the cookie jar. I'm worried that if we take our foot off the gas, just because we know the state's in rough shape, we might miss out on things that we still could get our hands on.
I agree.
Sorry, I touched that document, I didn't know it was a live document, sorry.
That's fine.
I added a column, so.
I think you
Okay,
can click that and changes it to read only,
just say Matt's column.
but not editing, don't worry about it, editing, drop that down, and then just go to viewing.
Thank you, Andy.
You're welcome. I have done that exact thing too, so I think I just did it again, it's last edited by Andy Lee, I was like, I didn't do anything, I'm sorry.
So here is
Okay.
the clear mud process of how this process worked. Alan from Stiefel wasn't able to join us today, but he will come before the board, so you guys can pepper him with questions as well too, and he can provide much more in-depth answers. So here's how the financing structure works for a certificate of participation. So the county owns something, right? And we are leasing that to a bank trustee. Our trustee is BOK Financial. So essentially we leased this building to BOK. And then BOK issued the COPs, and holds that debt. So part of our payments, the annual payment is, I don't know if a reverse mortgage is the best way, or even just like a mortgage in itself, so the annual payment goes towards that $8 million every year, right? And then at the end of that, when we have paid off the COP, right, the title reverts back to the Board of County Commissioners. So that's just, that is super high level, on that.
It's like a pawn shop.
Yeah. We pawned out the
We
courthouse.
pawned out the courthouse, we can get it back once we've paid for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so the certificate of participation, you know, it's something that, you know, county and municipal governments across the state and the state government itself use as a financing tool, right? So, you know, in 2016, sales tax was proposed to the voters here for Justice Center and for renovation of the Dales. That failed. We could have gone out back to the voters and said, hey, we wanna do a bond. Voters would be like, stop, get out of here. Like, we're not going forward for this. So the COP is a tool that decision makers can use to get the funding needed to address things that, you know, need to be addressed, that cause the county liability or expose the county to liability, right? Things like that, so that is one of the tools available to us. Don't know if this one is any helpful. This is basically just kind of like a write-out of what it is.
Mm.
And then, actually,
Reach,
love my best.
It's in yoga.
Right.
it's good for you.
So Chris and I and Lauren reviewed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of documents for this process. Thankfully, at one point in Chris's career, she was what were you, Chris? Like a finance attorney. So she understood these kind of documents, which was very helpful.
Speaks the language.
Yes. Stiefel was very helpful. We also had bond counsel through Kutak Rock. They were very helpful. Is there anything you wanna add, Chris, while I'm trying to open this?
No, yeah, it just, the prior experience with this was helpful because the documents comprising, I don't know, was it about 70 pages or so of mouse type size,
Yeah.
provisions, are very complicated. And so it was helpful to have had some experience with similar documents in the past, in order to kind of distill them down and highlight some provisions to be attentive to.
So here is what was used. We went through the full process. We went through the credit rating with S&P Global Ratings. Lake County did receive an A+ credit rating, and we are maintaining that. So here's the large document that outlines everything. So even in here, see lots of names that you probably recognize listed out. I'll find it. So even like Lauren, Will and I and Chris had to provide our own biographies for this. So this is what firms or people using to purchase the COP used. So they looked through everything that we had done. Here we are. All of that, can we pay it back? These kinds of things. I just wanted this schedule.
I see I was way wrong. It was actually 180 pages of different documents that we had to wade through.
So they used our financials. Where? Pull up the table. I thought this document had the payment table in it. That's what I wanted to show you.
That's what we wanna see.
Yeah. Let me find it. Sorry. But as we went through this process, we did take that annual payment amount and we did plug it in to our long range plans, right? So that it is a built-in number in the budget, right? And we know that that has to be in there, no matter what. We have to show that to DOLA when we submit our budget to DOLA. Obviously, we have to show it to the board every year, right? That we are making our debt payment, all of those kind of things. So those are built into our long range plans. This one. That was the there one. Is it this one? There we go. No, that was at the wrong amount. Closing that one. There we go. Alright. Can you see this, Chris?
Yes, small, but yeah, there you better.
Okay. So our closing statement, that's not it. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, the annual payment.
Yeah. Sorry for the pause.
Don't be sorry.
It's okay.
We got all the time in the world.
I just updated the clerk and recorder's office on Google
Oh,
for their hours of operation.
all done.
And what did you put in there?
Closed.
No hours.
Oh, yeah, cause the training.
I closed it till Friday, through Friday.
It's tabs
Sure.
time.
Say again?
It's tabs time,
What does that mean?
car tabs. Cause it's the end of the month.
Thanks.
Oh. Do they close it
Registration.
every month for that?
No, this
Oh, you're
is
saying
the
it's
worst
time.
time to close.
Yeah.
This is the worst time they could have done it.
We've watched people walk
Oh.
up.
I'm
It might be
keeping,
worth
I'm keeping tabs
staggering
on it.
when people go to training in the future.
Girl, we know that.
If you guys would like to have that discussion.
Candace, we know that. I'm
You
keeping a little
think?
tally over here if it comes up.
Oh, I feel so bad for everyone I see walking up to that office, and I'm like, if there was any, our hands are tied right now with that.
Yeah, if you got pulled over with expired tags, you might have a good defense. I was-
Very true.
I feel like
all
the sheriff
the-
would understand that.
Public watching is paying attention to these statements.
Well, if anybody
Well,
checks the
I
internet.
mean, everybody's been
Good
right
reminder.
to prove that.
Hopefully it can deter people if they check the internet first.
Yes,
Oh,
anything we could do to keep people from walking in here with envelopes and paperwork and walking up to that door and then just having this look like. We will do everything within our power to remedy the inconsistent hours of the clerk's office. It's gonna take a little bit of time, but
That would be wonderful.
it is.
I think the public would really
We'll do what we
appreciate
can.
that.
Yes,
We'll do it.
everything within our ability
What was that?
to remedy the inconsistent hours of the clerk's office is something that from this chair right here being able to see is, we already knew, we all knew. It was-
Well, when I got here, people were asking me right out,
Mhm.
and I'm like, they're at a conference, they're closed until Friday, I can't do anything.
Yeah.
okay. Okay. Alright, 206 pages was the final document.
You wanna search the document?
I just happened to, hold on.
Oh.
But
Lauren, I'm starting to get upper Arkansas area emails and stuff. At some point, can you catch me up a little bit on things?
It's not pretty, but yes.
That's what I'm gathering.
was on it. Alright. Oh, A1. Stay exhaust.
Now I wanna go to Quincy's.
Yeah.
Stop it.
They only had lunch hours. Not that we really get lunch anyway.
There's not enough time.
Uh,
Alright.
Could build it in next week.
Yes,
Just
Not
head
to say
over to
what
that.
isn't.
yeah, maybe, yeah,
They have lunch there, chips?
I don't know, I started, I brought a whole grocery bag full
Yeah, I've
of
been
this
looking for it.
today, 'cause,
Lauren, do you want this seat? I just
I
like
gotta
it
get my
because no one
fridge
was here
going.
earlier.
yeah.
Otherwise
Oh,
I'm
it's okay.
spending $10 or $15.
Yeah, no, that's unsustainable for me.
There's a fridge in the assessor's office.
He did offer that.
Did you? Yeah, I remember,
And a
right?
microwave, he said.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely wanna have a, electric kettle and tea.
I also got that hot water heater in there. I've been using it.
Long-term goals.
Yeah, sure.
Chris, I can't find the table,
Which one are you?
the repayment schedule
Amortization.
table, I don't know why.
Yeah, see if I've got it in my folder.
I love that we're searching, I just wanna say I have a 12:15. Is
Okay.
that gonna be possible?
That sure is.
Okay, cool,
That
just
sure
wanted to
is.
make sure we're on time.
But if there are other things, as you guys, we talked about asset management, capital improvement, COP, this construction process. Any other questions or? What you guys have for us?
No.
Tim, do you remember where that was a part of? That's why, unfortunately, my COP file is rather large.
Yeah, mine too. I know it was, Alan had it and it was part of one of our presentations and I thought it was in the executed COP.
I need my emails.
So I have the maturity schedule, but that's not.
It's not, base rental payments, I'm on
Yes.
page 12.
On, the one in the,
Or sorry, page 42.
okay.
What we were meeting with looking at meeting with a school district attorney
Mhm.
on Wednesday, is that the day that works for you guys?
Yeah,
Next Wednesday.
yeah.
Yes, February 5th. I will try and get my other meetings with the community set up on that day then.
So was that, I'm sorry, Commissioner Lee, was that to meet with the immigration attorney?
Yeah,
Okay, for that morning at 10?
Does that not work for you?
works for me.
Okay, cause I can try to make Tuesday work. If that's better.
Wednesday at 10, I think Tuesday we only have the regular meeting,
Yeah, I have a 9 o'clock too, but I
okay.
can try to move that
I
if Wednesday isn't good for you.
No, Wednesday's great for me.
Okay. I will let Karen know. Then Wednesday at 10?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
How long do we need for that, you think, Chris?
It'll be pretty much driven by your questions, so, I mean.
Oh,
maybe
boy.
30 I was gonna say 30 minutes, but after that, maybe an hour. Depends on
Edward.
how many questions y'all have for.
Okay.
I think we might just have this listing on.
Does- I don't.
I'm trying to find it, still 10. Last presentation.
Had Risky Galarza reached out to you guys?
I asked for it to be put on the calendar.
Okay, yeah, I said it would be better, suggested it would be better for her to meet with all three of us, we didn't have to.
Yeah, I think they found a time.
Who's that?
Yeah, I reached out, Sandra's been working with her to join a work session.
Christy
Okay.
Galarza with Gen Consulting.
Speaking of
Well,
which,
drink water.
give me different
Drink water.
dates that work for you
Lots
at the animal
breathing.
shelter.
Box breathing,
Yes.
never hurts.
You guys all gave me, well, two of you gave me different dates of the ones that I provided that work for the animal shelter, just cause you're here. 7th in the morning, the 13th at 10, or the 14th, anytime. Could we just figure out a time that works for another work session for that time?
One of those was on
We had-
Thursday.
I don't have the principal land
Yeah,
interest.
the third,
It's just not adding up.
13th is a Thursday at 10.
That would be my preference.
That's fine.
Okay.
Could that work for you, Commissioner Lee?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the 13th at 10 a.m., I'll schedule it for a work session on the animal shelter.
Okay, that's gonna
Alright.
show up on our calendars?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, appreciate you.
You're gonna have read all 206 pages again.
It was some brutal brain damage and it was also during, I was on vacation. So I
Oh
spent a
no.
lot of time in the car reading it on my phone, which was painful.
I know, totally.
Yeah.
You might have to,
So I know, so with the $8 million borrowing, the annual payment, is around $540,000 a year.
Yeah.
And it doesn't change much over the term of that. There is no penalty for prepayment.
Yeah.
25 years?
Is what we took it out for.
Okay.
Aren't you not allowed to be penalized for prepayment in Colorado? I'm pretty sure you're legally
Oh,
not
yeah.
allowed to be penalized.
Yeah.
But
Let's
Chris
read
would
it.
know that.
That, I was gonna say that, I think that's for consumer loans. Commercial loans are treated much differently, and this would be considered a commercial loan.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
And so the 8 million borrowing, so the annual payments about is $540,000 a year. The interest rate on that is 4.5%. So what we can do and what we have done, so literally like the day we logged in, we watched this little ticker and we watched these people buy our COPs.
Mm-hmm.
That $8 million was sent directly to Patrick in the treasurer. Patrick then immediately put that into an investment account. So that money is just sitting in with Colorado Trust, which is I don't know if they're quasi judicial or not, but a nonprofit investment firm
Mhm.
that municipalities and counties in the state itself uses to hold its investments.
Mhm.
So that is sitting in its own investment fund. So there are, options, we can do that, so obviously we haven't drawn down any money from that, so the longer we let that sit in there and gain interest, we can use that towards the project, or more smartly, we can use that
Pay it
towards
off.
our
Paying it off.
paying it off.
Do you know what the interest rate is?
4.5.
The investment interest rate?
Oh, no, I will need to check with Patrick what that is. But there are also options, we could open a money market account for our investment policies, we could open that. You can draw on those 2 or 3 times a month. We can find high yield investment account. Put it in there. There's options.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will find that table and send it to you guys, I apologize for not being able to find it right now. I know I have it. Cause I found my memo on it, I just couldn't find my a presentation or from Alan.
Yeah, I keep looking too.
I don't feel like it's important for us to look through it right now. Is it okay if you just email it to us?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
But if you guys have any other questions on the certificate of participation, I kind of have a list of questions for Alan, like he's aware, like kind of, of the questions you guys have, and we'll find that, so then you can spend that time with him to ask about the process and all of that. But, for any of the questions that I'm able to answer right now, I'm happy to do that through the process, that we went through. So if you have any questions. Otherwise, our morning session is over, sorry.
Okay,
Sorry.
we'll be taking a deeper dive with Alan on
Yes,
this,
yeah.
and hopefully Chris can be present to help decipher some of the language, verbiage for us, and
Yep.
with our questions about, how we're gonna get ahead on this, the payments on these, hopefully to pay this ahead as fast as we can.
Yes.
We need, yeah, I think
Absolutely.
what we need to spend on that building,
Mhm.
and then figure out a plan from there. Like, are we gonna use it all? Do we not need to use it all? What needs to be fixed?
Mhm. Great.
Cool. Alright, well, that is it for the morning, it's 11:32 a.m. January 29th, Wednesday, we are ending this AM work session of the Board of County Commissioners.
Thank you, Andy.
And we'll be back
Thanks,
at
everybody.
Thank you,
One
Chris.
PM for finance.
1 PM for finance, alright.
Thank you.